Greetings, friends. When I started writing this book in 2011, I wrestled with a few questions. The main one, was where to rank which artist. Only one thing was indisputable, and it was who was gonna be number one. Of course, it had to be Bob Marley, King of Reggae. Today, February 6th, is the birthday of the great man. And now I'll be doing a short reading, part one of his chapter, Bob Marley, King of Reggae. Here we go. There are personalities in history that are inextricably linked to their countries of origin, for better or for worse. Hitler to Germany, Stalin to Russia, Mao to China, Selassie to Ethiopia, Castro to Cuba, and Marley to Jamaica. In Marley, everything came together. His story is one of greatness personified. He remains the foremost ambassador of reggae music, having put Jamaica on the world stage. Marley also became the main voice and primary agent that turned a little-known Rastafarian religion into a worldwide movement. Jamaica is not an economic power, but is certainly culturally relevant, thanks to their native son, Nestor Robert Marley, popularly known as Bob Marley, the King of Reggae. A romance between a 16-year-old black country girl, Cedella Booker, and a white middle-aged ex-soldier, Norval Marley, in the 1940s resulted in the birth of a child named Nestor. Norval worked the colonial office for the British government, and his primary duty was to convince local farmers to stay on the land and work their farms with the assistance of the authorities. His was an intimidating presence, with him usually dressed in his regimental attire on horseback, riding through the area of 9 Miles, St. Anne. That is where he met Cedella. The couple married in 1944, but by the time the young Marley arrived, his father had already exited the scene. Norval reportedly, maybe once or twice after the boy's birth, visited and then disappeared from their lives permanently. The young Marley existed in a world of dire poverty, but in rural Jamaica, surrounded by relatives, he could at least be sure of his meals. Hard life would become more acute once on his own. When Marley's mother decided to seek work opportunities in Kingston, he was left in the care of his grandfather Omeria, from whom he learned a lot of Jamaican folk songs. He also became curious about the guitar by observing one of his mother's cousins, Clarence Martin, a noted mentor guitarist in the 40s. It was evident that the musical talents rested on his mother's side. At age 12, he joined his mother in the Kingston slum of Trenchtown. It was a volatile situation where he was shuttled between her friends and relatives, as she was constantly on the go looking for work. In those days, he went to school intermittently, spending the rest of his time on the streets where criminality and violence were the norm. Then he discovered music. By no choice of his own, he was living in a part of the city that was giving birth to new musical expression that would give the island its own identity. From the 30s upwards, the richer class of Jamaica was playing a copy of the big band music from North America that became known as mento, or in the other islands, calypso. When the sound rippled down into the lower rungs of society, it became ska. By the late 50s, when Marley was a teenager, ska gave way to another sound, rocksteady. This all took shape in Trenchtown. One of the biggest stars of rocksteady was Alton Ellis. Marley looked up to Ellis and ventured out doing talent shows like the Vera John's Opportunity Hour. This led him and his stepbrother Neville, who we would now know as Bunny Wailer, to the home of one of his first of his substitute fathers, Joe Higgs. Higgs was born Joseph Higgs, and by the late 50s he became popular as part of a duo, Higgs and Wilson. Under Higgs' tutelage, this is where the most influential group in the history of Jamaican music, the Wailers, would be born. At this location, Marley and Livingston met Winston McIntosh, also known as Peter Tosh, as well as Junior Brathwaite, Beverly Kelso, and Cherry Green. At Higgs' residence, friendships solidified and they became a group that was initially named the Teenagers. Higgs was also a stabilizing force in their lives, keeping them grounded in the harsh realities of the music business. When their friends would tell them that they were ready, Higgs, according to sources, would chase them away, saying, "They are not ready, they are just getting ready." The group would rehearse for nearly 2 years before doing a record. While the group was in gestation, each member survived by doing day jobs. Marley worked in a welding shop. At his shop was a want-to-be singer, Desmond Dakers, later to be famously known as Desmond Decker, who came to work one day boasting about his recent recordings. Marley told his co-worker that he too wanted to be on records, so Desmond took him to Beverly's Records, ran by Leslie Kong. But first, he had to get past the listening ears of Jimmy Cliff and Derek Morgan, who themselves were singers, but doubling as talent scouts for Kong. If they were not impressed, Kong would not be interested. Marley sang, and both men listened and nodded in approval. The results were 2 singles, One Cup of Coffee, released under the name Bobby Martell, and the more radical Judge Not, under Robert Marley and the Beverly All-Stars. This year was 1962. After their 2-year apprenticeship was served with Higgs, Higgs took the group, now known as the Wailers, to Clement Coxsondad, the most established of all the producers. And this is where it all started. Now that was part 1 of the reading on the chapter on Bob Marley, King of Reggae. Stay tuned for more.